Hey guys, Russ Merrill here, and today we're going to be opening the first two starter decks in the brand new card game Gate Ruler. On the left here we have the Youkai and Giant Robo Deck, and on the right the Demonic Dragon Summoning Deck. So just for you guys who are unfamiliar, Gate Ruler is a brand new Japanese card game that just came out last week officially in Japan. It was created by shop manager Ikechi, the creator of Future Card Buddy Fight, as a sort of spiritual successor to Buddy Fight in a sense, but in many ways, so much more. I'm not going to be covering the game in too much detail in these videos, so for you guys who are curious about the game, please do check out other card game YouTubers who are covering the game. For me, I'm just going to be showing you guys the cards with a bit of explanation about their effects and the rules, and I hope to maybe film a few card battles of this game in the future as well. Anyway, starting off with the Youkai and Giant Robo Deck, this is basically all you get in the box, very minimalistic, just the deck itself wrapped in plastic with no playmat or rulebook. So the first thing you guys should know is that there are currently 5 worlds in Gate Ruler, which are basically the same concept as the worlds from Buddy Fight or the clans in Vanguard. They are Atlas, Warner, Magical Universe, the Invasion Dimension, and finally the Touyou-gun in Japanese, which basically translates to the Eastern Mystic Army. And all of the cards in this Youkai and Giant Robo Deck are basically from the Touyou-gun, which you can tell from their red card layouts, and this mark on the bottom left, that's the world mark. Next, just to give you guys a gist of where everything on the card is, on the top left here is the level and also the cost of the card. Here's the card name on top, and on the top right you basically have the card's attributes. On the bottom left here you guys can see the attack followed by the HP and the strike. The strike is basically the damage that a unit can deal to the opposing player, whereas the attack is the amount of damage they deal to opposing unit. And of course their HP is the amount of damage they can take before they are destroyed and erased from the field. And of course the text over here is their effects, and right below the level cost you guys will see this blue mark with OD in it. That's basically just an indication of the kind of effect that this card possesses. The blue mark with OD stands for Overdrive, which is an effect which basically triggers when you drive check the card. More on that later. The more important part is this card over here. This is a ruler card, and basically when you craft any deck in Gate Ruler, you have to decide what kind of ruler you're going to be playing it with. And depending on the ruler you choose, the rules by which you play the game actually become different. So that's kind of one of the whole namesakes for this game, Gate Ruler, where one of the goals is to allow different players to play a different card game against each other depending on their own preferences. So for example, I could be playing Vanguard against another person playing Yu-Gi-Oh, but both within the Gate Ruler system, and that is the dream of this game. This ruler here is the Apprentice. From the bottom left stats you can see both the attack and the strike, and of course they have a life to show how much damage you can take before you lose the game. The Apprentice is designed for basically casual players and beginners to card games in general, and it's essentially kind of like playing Vanguard but with no brains at all. When you play as the Apprentice, you have no energy or basically no mana. You also have no hand. You also do not draw, but at the start of each of your turns, you drive check the top 2 cards of your deck. And in this game, cards that you drive check can be played at no cost. So essentially the whole point of the Apprentice is you are not really allowed to apply any strategy in terms of choosing what cards to play from your hand at all. You're just going to be checking the top 2 cards of your deck every turn and playing them regardless of what they are. So yes, very casual, very beginner friendly, not really my cup of tea, but the whole point of this game is to try and be able to equalize the playing ground between casual players and competitive players. Don't know how well it's going to work out right yet, but I'd like to see how this experiment goes. It is very interesting. But of course some of you guys might be thinking, wait a minute, if this guy just lets you drive check the top 2 cards of your deck, you can just fill your deck with the most powerful cards in the game, right? No. Because in order to balance things, depending on your ruler, your deck construction rules are different as well. So when you play as the A1 Apprentice, you have a maximum cost limit for your deck, which means you can't fill your deck with cost 3 units, which are the strongest. You need to have a balance of high cost and low cost units to remain within that cost limit, and that's how the Apprentice is still supposed to be fair. And since you're basically going to be drive checking every single card of your deck, many cards in this deck have the blue OD ability Overdrive, which trigger when they are drive checked. And when this foil guy over here is overdrive, you get to look at the top card of your deck and set it if it's a settable card, and if it isn't, move it to the bottom of your deck. Yes, so whether a card can be set or not depends on whether it's an event card or a unit card. So this game basically has events and units. Units are the monsters as you see here. Events are basically spells or traps, and there are set zones on the field where you can set them before activating them on your opponent's turn as well. So they're kind of like the traps in Yu-Gi-Oh! In a way. And of course there are some units that can be set as well depending on the mechanic. But anyway, let's go into the actual cards in this set, which look pretty cool. So basically the Touyou-gun or Eastern Mystic Army is kind of supposed to be like a futuristic vision of like the Japanese defense forces, which combines technology, of course giant robots, with like their whole like traditional mystic art. So this cost 2 robot here has the caution ability. At the end of your attack phase, which is basically the end of your turn, you can move it from an attack zone to a defense zone. Just like Buddy Fight, as long as you have a unit in your defense zone, your player cannot be attacked. However, the unit in the defense zone cannot attack either. So that's why this ability, which is similar to Move in Buddy Fight, is very interesting and powerful. So we've got 3 copies of that. I assume 3 is the limit for each card, and I just want to point out that these cards, right, are actually made of like a much better quality compared to like typical card games out there, and the back is like really nice too with the whole design, and it's kind of like a matte surface as well, which I can't really show you guys because it's more of a feel thing rather than a see thing, but I guess you can kind of see it from the surface as well. Now let's take a look at this robot over here. Overdrive, until the end of the turn, this unit gains double attack, so it basically can attack twice. Those of you guys who play Buddy Fight probably know it. Okay, actually it looks like the limit is 4, so here we have a cost 1 robot vanilla with 3/4/2 stats. Some guy called Joe. Alright. 3 copies of Joe. Another vanilla robot. Of course, this is a starter deck, so we can expect a lot of vanilla cards. This guy is not a vanilla. This guy, Inaza, has a continuous effect which gives all of your military units +1 HP, so that'll be very nice and defensive to protect you from the opponent's attacks. And oh, this is the foil guy we got earlier, but in a non-foil version, just 1 copy. And these are the event cards in the game, which are basically, well, they're just like the impact cards in Buddy Fight. They are printed sideways, and that's why on the field itself you set them like this: instantaneous attack and defense. So every event has its own activation timing, depending on whether it's like a spell kind of event or a trap kind of event. This one can be activated while it's set when an opponent's unit attacks, so it's very trappy. Choose one of your units, and until the end of the turn, it gains counter attack. And counter attack is basically an ability where when your opponent's unit attacks that unit, right before damage calculation, your unit will attack the opponent's unit instead and possibly destroy it, ending the attack right there. So it's a very powerful effect to basically cast on your units in the defense zone, because although they can't attack, by giving them the counter attack ability, they can basically blast the opponent's units that come to destroy it. Very interesting. So even though this game is still very early in its lifespan, because its creator is very inexperienced with card games in general, even the starter decks in the first booster come with many interesting effects that you can use that really make you feel like you're playing a Japanese card game. So that's one of the parts that I really like about this game. Desperate Defense Battle, its activation timing is instant, so you can either use it on the spot or basically just activate it whenever while it's set. Choose one of your units and give it HP +3 until the end of the turn, so helping you survive in the defense zone as well. Oh, wait a minute! Okay, so this deck is not just Touyou-gun. These cards with the pink back and this logo on the bottom left here represent one of the other worlds, Magical Universe. Here we have Grand Galak, a cost 3 extremely powerful vanilla card, a Robo. 4 copies of him, followed by a pretty cool looking alien, the Space Ninja Ginga. On Overdrive, Cosmic Slash. Choose one of your opponent's set cards and destroy it. And if you destroyed Space Arthur by this effect, deal 3 damage to your opponent. I know you guys, a lot of you guys will be wondering, what the hell is Space Arthur right now? But Space Arthur is basically one of the powerful cards in the very first booster. It's a unit that you can set as like a spell trap, and when you lose, you can activate him to basically continue playing the game and revive. So That is pretty cool, man. Setting up such a situational counter already in the starter decks. So this is the Space Monster Recruiter. You'll notice that other than Overdrive, he also has CNC in red, which stands for counter. So just like Vanguard in this game, when you receive damage, you basically move the top card of your deck to your damage zone as a damage check. And when the card checked has this CNC mark, which stands for counter, the damage is basically nullified and you get to activate its counter effect, which in this case is activate its Overdrive effect. Choose one of your opponent's level 1 or lower units and then you may gain control of it. However, if you do, you have to give control of this unit to the opponent. Interesting effect right there. So we've got 4 copies of the Recruiter. Here we have another counter card. On counter, choose one of your opponent's units and rest it. Alright, so that might just allow you to survive a turn where your opponent is just set up to finish you off. So just a vanilla dude, Space Dullahan. Oh right, yes, because there's Space Arthur, there's this weird series of units which are in space but based off the Knights of the Royal Table. And here we have Emergency Combination. As counter, place this card in your grave so you don't get to activate any effect from the counter. But as an event on its own, its activation timing is while set, you can activate it whenever you have a Robo on your field. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, take one Robo or military from among them and place them either on top or under one Robo on your field which has no soul. And yes, soul basically means the same thing as it does in Buddy Fight and pretty much in Vanguard as well, just that any unit in Buddy Fight and in Gate Ruler can have soul. After that, if the unit on top is a Robo, it gains Soul Guard, which is the same effect as you guys would know from Buddy Fights. Put the remaining cards on the bottom of your deck. So basically, if you have a robot in your defense zone, your opponent attacks it, trying to destroy it so that it can get into you to deal damage, you can activate this card to Emergency Combination. Fuse it, give it some Soul Guard, or basically put an even stronger Robo on top of it from the top of your deck to protect you even more. Here we have Blaster Cannon, a 1-cost counter. As counter, play this card. Activation timing is instant, and you can choose from one of the 2 following effects, either inflict 1 damage to the opposing player or inflict 2 damage to an opposing unit. So very simple. 4 copies of that. Of course, it wouldn't be fair to fill your deck with counters, right? So just like Vanguard, for most rulers, you currently can have about 16 counter cards in your deck, which is about the same amount as the number of triggers you have in Vanguard. This counter card is Warp. On counter, play this card. It is also an instant. Choose one of your units and move it to an empty zone. If you use this effect while that unit is being attacked, the attack basically becomes negated because it misses. However, if you move the unit from your defense zone out of the defense zone, then of course the attack will miss that unit but go straight right into your face. So be careful about that. 2 copies, 3 and 4 copies of Warp. That'll be all for this first starter deck. I know I didn't go into too much detail, but hopefully you guys got some idea of how the game is played and maybe become a bit more curious about the game as a whole too. Anyways, moving on to the next starter deck opening.